All right, get ready because we're about to take a deep dive into the world of white sharks.
Oh, this should be good.
Specifically,
Hmm.
those interactions with us humans, those moments that make you think twice about
Yeah.
getting in the water.
Right.
And to help us unpack this, we've got a scientific paper
Okay.
titled White Shark Attacks Upon Humans in California and Oregon, 1993-2003.
Oh, wow. So a whole decade.
Yeah, full decade.
Yeah.
And it analyzes confirmed unprovoked attacks.
Gotcha.
And it builds on a previous study from 1996. So
Oh, nice.
we've got some good historical context here.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so valuable to have that historical
Mm,
context,
yeah.
to see the trends over time
Absolutely.
and really understand, the patterns and what's been going on.
Absolutely. So as we were prepping for this deep dive, what really jumped out at?
Well, one of the first things that I thought was interesting was how the paper really kind of debunks some common misconceptions
Okay.
about white shark attacks.
Okay, like
But,
what?
for example, a lot of people think that shark attacks are more frequent during certain seasons, like summer or something.
Right, right.
But this study found that, attacks actually happen across various months.
Oh, interesting.
I know.
But there was that slight peak in late summer, right?
Yeah,
So
that's true.
is that just more people in the water or is there something else going on?
Well, yeah, I mean, more people in the water is definitely a factor,
Yeah.
but it also happens to coincide with the time when young elephant seals and sea lions are starting to venture out on their own.
Oh, interesting.
They're inexperienced swimmers, making them easy targets
Right.
for predators, including white sharks.
Oh, so just more prey animals in the water might also lead to
Exactly.
more sharks in those areas.
Yeah, it's all about the food chain.
Yeah.
White sharks are going to go where the prey is.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
And that actually brings us to another crucial point.
Okay.
Most of the attacks in this study happen near pinniped colonies or river mouths.
So areas where white sharks are already looking for food.
Exactly, exactly.
Okay, but I mean, it's still a little unnerving to think that a shark could mistake
I
a
know.
human for a seal.
Yeah, it's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And the paper really does support the theory of mistaken identity.
Okay.
Most victims were surfers or divers,
Right.
often wearing dark wetsuits,
Right.
which from below could totally resemble a seal or a sea lion.
It's amazing how like the color of a wetsuit
Oh,
can
right.
play such a role.
It's these little things that we
Yeah.
don't even think about.
Totally.
But to a shark, it could be the difference between,
Yeah.
being attacked or not.
Totally.
And, speaking of perception, there's this fascinating case in the paper
Oh, yeah.
involving a scuba diver named Marco Flagg,
Okay.
who was attacked while using an electric scooter.
An electric scooter? Like underwater?
Yeah, I know, right?
What?
It's not your typical scuba gear.
Yeah, that's wild.
But it raises some interesting questions.
Okay, like what?
Well, researchers believe that the sound and electric fields emitted by the scooter
Uh-huh.
might have actually attracted the shark's attention.
Wow, so it wasn't even necessarily targeting him, it was
Well,
just
right, it was drawn to the scooter.
drawn to the scooter.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's crazy.
And it makes you think about all the other technology we use in the water
Right.
and how that might impact our interactions with sharks.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a whole new area of research.
Yeah.
But it's really important to understand how sharks respond to these various stimuli
Right.
to, improve our safety.
Absolutely.
Now, there's another case that's equally intriguing
Oh, okay.
and also tragic.
Okay.
A commercial diver named James Robinson,
Okay.
also using an electric scooter,
Oh, wow.
was fatally attacked near San Miguel Island.
Oh, I remember reading about that one. That was the third attack near Castle Rock and Westcott Shoal, an area with
Right. A lot of pinnipeds there.
huge pinniped colonies.
Yeah. It's a stark reminder that when we venture into certain areas of the ocean, we're
It's their home.
we're in your house.
Yeah, we're the visitors.
Exactly.
And, it really emphasizes the need for caution and awareness.
Totally.
But here's what's surprising.
Okay.
Despite how terrifying shark attacks are,
Yeah.
the fatality rate in the Northeast Pacific is actually relatively low,
Really?
only about 10% compared to other regions.
Wow, that's reassuring.
Yeah.
But why is that? Is it better medical care here or?
Yeah, the paper suggests it's a combination of things.
Okay.
The buddy system, where divers and surfers go out in pairs,
Yeah.
allows for quick rescue if someone is attacked.
Right.
And we also have really rapid emergency response and advanced medical care here,
Right.
which definitely increase the chances of survival.
So it's like while an encounter with a white shark is undoubtedly terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
Having a buddy in a good medical system
Yeah,
can really improve your odds.
for sure.
Wow, okay.
Now, let's talk about another fascinating aspect of shark behavior that this paper highlights.
Okay.
It's this phenomenon they call bite and spit.
Bite and spit. Okay, let's unpack that.
Yeah, so what this means is that a white shark might take a bite
Uh-huh.
and then release the victim
Oh, interesting.
rather than, engaging in a prolonged attack.
Okay.
It's thought to be a way of assessing the prey.
So they're basically taking a test bite.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, not what I was expecting.
Yeah, not what I ordered.
Yeah.
And this behavior could be one reason why some victims survive even after being bitten.
Oh, interesting.
Seems like humans aren't really on the white shark's preferred menu.
Well, that's a relief.
Right.
Even if the thought of that initial bite is still pretty terrifying.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I know we talked about how dark wetsuits can resemble seals from below.
Right.
Are there any cases in the paper that kind of support that theory?
Yeah, there's a case involving a surfer named Kenneth Dowd
Okay.
who was attacked near Bodega Bay. He was wearing a black wetsuit,
Uh-huh.
paddling on his surfboard, when a shark grabbed him from behind,
Oh, wow.
mistaking him for a seal.
Oh, man.
Luckily, the shark released him quickly,
Oh, okay.
and he was able to paddle back to shore with the help of his friends.
Oh, man, another close call.
Yeah.
It seems like the color of your wetsuit really can.
It really does suggest that visual cues play a significant role in these encounters.
Yeah.
And, while we can't control everything in the ocean,
Right.
being mindful of our appearance
Yeah.
and how it might be perceived by a shark is at least one step we can take to reduce the risk.
I wonder if there's like other visual factors, like wetsuit patterns.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Or like the color of surfboards and stuff.
There has been some research on that.
Yeah.
But it's a really complex area
Yeah.
with no easy answers.
Right.
Some studies suggest that high contrast patterns or bright colors might deter sharks,
Okay.
while others have found that sharks can still detect prey even when camouflage is used.
Huh. So it's like,
It's really a mixed bag,
it's a mixed bag.
and it definitely warrants further research, especially as more people are venturing into the ocean
Totally. Yeah.
for recreational activities.
It's a constant learning process.
It is.
As we gain more knowledge about sharks
Absolutely.
and their behavior, we can adapt our own behavior
Right.
to try to minimize the chances of these encounters.
Exactly.
But there's always going to be that element of unpredictability, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You're dealing with wild animals.
Yeah.
We're entering their world.
Yeah.
And we need to be mindful of that.
Well said.
All right, so I think it's time we dive into some of these specific cases from the paper.
Yes, let's do those individual stories, I think really bring this data to life.
They do.
I'm really interested to hear about some of these more intriguing encounters
Yeah.
and what they can teach us about both shark behavior and human responses to
Absolutely.
these, terrifying situations.
Yeah, it's a lot we can learn from these stories.
Huh?
Welcome back to our deep dive into white shark attacks. These cases, while terrifying, they offer some really valuable insights into the interplay between humans and sharks.
Totally. Each one's like a piece of the puzzle,
Yeah.
helping us figure out why these encounters happen and, how we can minimize the risks.
Exactly.
So let's dive into some of these cases. Where do we start?
Well, the paper highlights several attacks that occurred near the Farallon Islands. It's a group of islands off the coast of San Francisco,
Oh, yeah, I've heard of the Farallones.
known for their abundant wildlife.
Yeah.
Particularly elephant seals.
Ah, that's right. They're like a
Yeah,
popular spot for great white sharks.
they are. The elephant seal colony there is a major draw for sharks, making those waters
Yeah.
a prime hunting ground.
It's like their buffet.
It is. One case that stands out is the attack on a surfer named Scott Stevens. He was paddling out at a spot called the Dump when a shark grabbed his leg and pulled him underwater.
The Dump. That's a pretty ominous name for a surf spot.
Yeah, it is.
What happened to Scott's?
Well, fortunately, he managed to fight back, punching the shark repeatedly until it released him.
Wow.
He suffered severe injuries, but ultimately survived,
Oh, wow.
thanks in part to the quick actions of his fellow surfers who helped him get to shore.
That's an incredible story of survival. It really emphasizes the buddy system, right?
It does.
But it also makes you wonder what triggers a shark to release its grip. Like, were Scott's punches enough, or did the shark just decide he wasn't what it was looking for?
That's a great question.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, we don't have a definitive answer.
Yeah.
It could be a combination of factors.
Right.
The shark might have been startled by Scott's resistance, Or perhaps, like you suggested, it realized he wasn't a seal after that initial bite.
Right.
Sharks rely heavily on their senses to identify prey,
Yeah.
and the taste and texture of a human might not be what they're expecting.
Right. It's almost like that bite and spit behavior where
Exactly.
the shark takes a test bite and then decides to move on.
Yeah, it gives them a chance to escape, even if it's just for a few precious seconds.
It's a reminder that even in those moments of sheer terror, there's still a possibility of survival,
Absolutely.
especially if you're prepared right and know how to react.
Right, exactly.
Speaking of reactions, another case that stood out to me was the attack on a diver named Deborah Franzman off the coast of San Diego.
Oh, interesting.
She was diving with a group when a shark approached,
Uh-huh.
bumping her repeatedly before finally biting her on the leg.
Wow.
San Diego, I mean, that's not typical.
Not typically a white shark hotspot?
Yeah.
No. Not compared to places like the Farallones, but white sharks do migrate along the California coast, and they've been known to venture into Southern California waters,
Okay,
especially during certain times of the year.
gotcha.
What's interesting about Deborah's case is that she didn't panic.
Oh, wow.
She remained calm, kept her eyes on the shark, and slowly ascended to the surface with her group.
That's remarkable. I can't imagine staying calm in that situation.
It's incredible.
Do you think her composure played a role in the outcome?
It's hard to say for sure,
Yeah,
but it certainly didn't hurt.
right.
Panic and erratic movements can often trigger a more aggressive response from an animal,
Makes sense.
especially a predator. Deborah's calm demeanor might have signaled to the shark that she wasn't a threat, or at least not a typical prey animal.
It's a good reminder that while our instinct is to flee,
Right.
sometimes the best approach is to stay calm and assess.
Exactly.
Now, we talked earlier about how dark wetsuits can resemble seals.
Uh-huh.
Are there any cases that specifically support that theory?
Yes. There's a case involving a surfer named Kenneth Dowd
Okay,
who was attacked near Bodega Bay.
gotcha.
He was wearing a black wetsuit and paddling on a surfboard when a shark grabbed him from behind,
Oh,
mistaking him for a seal.
wow.
Luckily, the shark released him quickly,
Okay,
and he was able to paddle back to shore with the help of his friends.
another close call. It seems like the color of your wetsuit really can.
It really does suggest that visual cues play a significant role.
Yeah.
And while we can't control everything in the ocean,
Right.
being mindful of our appearance and how it might be perceived by a shark
Yeah.
is one step we could take to reduce the risk.
It makes you wonder if there's other visual factors, like
Yeah.
wetsuit patterns or even the color of surfboards.
There has been some research on that, but it's a complex area.
Yeah.
Some studies suggest that high contrast patterns or bright colors might deter sharks,
Okay.
while others have found that sharks can still detect prey even when camouflage is used.
It's a mixed bag.
It is. It's an area that definitely warrants further research,
For sure.
especially as more people are venturing into the ocean for recreation.
It's a constant learning process.
It is. As we gain more knowledge about sharks and their behavior, we can adapt our own behavior to minimize the chances of these encounters.
But there's always that element of unpredictability.
Absolutely. We're dealing with wild animals.
Right, we're in their world.
We're entering their world, and we need to be mindful of the risks involved.
Well said. Now, the paper also mentions a few cases that deviate from the typical pattern of attacks near pinniped colonies.
Oh, yeah.
For example, there's the case of a spearfisherman named Randy Fry, who was attacked in relatively deep water, far from shore.
Interesting.
What can we learn from cases like that?
Well, Randy's case is intriguing because it challenges some of the assumptions we might have about where and how these attacks occur.
Right.
He was diving in about 60 feet of water, several miles offshore,
Wow.
when a shark approached and bit him on the leg.
Oh, man.
It's a reminder that while most attacks happen in shallow water near shore,
Right.
sharks are highly mobile creatures
Yeah.
and can venture into deeper waters, especially when they're hunting.
So it's not just about avoiding certain areas.
Yeah.
It's about being aware that they can be present in a variety of habitats.
Exactly.
And Randy's case also highlights the potential risks associated with spearfishing.
Yeah,
The act of spearing fish can attract sharks.
it can. They're drawn to the scent of blood and the vibrations of a struggling fish.
It's a reminder that our actions in the water can have unintended consequences.
Absolutely.
We might be inadvertently attracting sharks without even realizing it.
That's right. And it underscores the need for education and awareness,
Yeah.
not just for surfers and divers,
Right.
but for anyone who spends time in the ocean.
Absolutely. Knowledge is power when it comes to sharing the ocean safely with sharks.
It is.
Now, I'm curious to delve deeper into the sensory biology of white sharks.
Okay.
You mentioned their incredible sense of smell,
Yeah.
their ability to detect vibrations through their lateral line.
Uh-huh.
How might those senses play a role in mistaken identity attacks? Welcome back to the deep dive. We've been exploring, those moments when humans and white sharks cross paths.
Yeah.
And I really want to get into the shark's perspective.
Right.
You mentioned their incredible senses, smell,
Yeah.
the lateral line, even vision in murky water. Could those be contributing to those mistaken identity attacks?
Yeah, it's a fascinating area of research. Um, we know that white sharks have an incredible sense of smell,
Right.
able to detect tiny traces of blood or other scents from miles away. But smell alone doesn't really explain everything,
Right.
especially in cases where attacks happen in clear water with no obvious attractants.
Yeah, so what else might be going on? Let's talk about that lateral line you mentioned.
Okay.
How exactly does that work, and how might it lead a shark to mistake a human for a seal?
So imagine like a network of highly sensitive sensors
Okay.
running along the shark's body,
Okay.
picking up vibrations and pressure changes in the water.
Okay.
That's basically the lateral line.
Oh, wow.
So a surfer paddling on a board
Uh-huh.
creates a distinct pattern of turbulence.
Right.
And to a shark, that might resemble the signature of a struggling fish or a seal splashing at the surface.
So it's like they're feeling the movement through the water rather than just seeing it.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like a whole other sense that we don't even have.
That's incredible. But wouldn't a shark be able to tell the difference once it gets closer?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting.
Okay.
A shark's visual perception might be different from ours.
Right.
In murky water or low light conditions, they might rely more on their lateral line and other senses.
Right?
They might get a feel for the prey first and then use vision to confirm.
Oh, so in those split-second decisions, a blurry shape creating the right kind of vibration might be enough to trigger an attack.
Exactly. Even if the shark gets a better look later,
Wow,
it might be too late.
that's crazy.
And that's why, understanding how sharks perceive the world through their senses
Right?
is so crucial. We often try to explain their behavior from our own human perspective,
Right.
but their sensory world is totally different.
It's a good reminder that we're sharing the ocean with creatures that have evolved over millions of years
Right.
to be incredibly efficient hunters.
You might be the newcomers in their domain.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it brings up another fascinating aspect of shark behavior.
Okay.
The bite and spit phenomenon we discussed earlier.
Yeah.
Why would a shark take a bite and then release its grip?
Especially if it's already gone to the trouble of attacking.
It seems counterintuitive.
It does. You'd think a predator would want to hold on to its prey.
Right.
But there are a few theories about why white sharks exhibit this behavior.
Okay.
One idea is that it's a way of testing the prey, almost like a taste test.
Okay.
They take a bite to see if it's what they're expecting, and if it's not,
All right.
they release it.
It's like they're saying, oops, wrong order.
Exactly, yeah.
It means they're not necessarily targeting humans as a food source.
Right. We're not on the menu.
That's good.
Another theory is that this bite and spit behavior is a way of minimizing risk for the shark.
Okay.
Attacking a large, potentially dangerous prey animal like a seal
Right.
could result in injuries, even for a white shark.
Right. So it's a calculated...
Exactly. They're weighing the potential benefits of a meal against the potential costs of injury.
And in the case of humans, it seems that the risks often outweighs the reward.
Yeah, we're just not a typical prey item.
Right.
And our taste and texture might not be what they're expecting.
So while that initial bite can be terrifying, it might also be the very thing that saves a person's life.
Yeah, it's a strange paradox.
Right.
The shark realizes it's made a mistake and moves on.
But it's important to remember that even a single bite can be incredibly powerful.
Oh, absolutely.
We should never underestimate the power of these creatures.
No, they're apex predators for a reason.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to the decrease in attacks that was observed after California implemented that legislation protecting white sharks.
Yeah.
Is there a direct link between those conservation efforts and a reduction in encounters?
It's a complex issue, and it's hard to say for certain if there's a direct causal relationship.
Mm.
But we do know that protecting white sharks has likely led to a healthier population.
Okay.
And a healthier population can have these cascading effects on the whole ecosystem.
So by protecting these apex predators, we're creating a more balanced and stable marine environment.
Exactly.
And that stability can benefit not just sharks, but all marine life,
Right.
including us humans.
A healthy ocean is a resilient ocean.
Right.
And a resilient ocean is better equipped to withstand the challenges of climate change, pollution, all those human-induced impacts.
It's a powerful reminder that our actions have far-reaching consequences, both positive and negative.
We have a responsibility to protect the ocean and all its inhabitants,
Yeah.
not just for their sake, but for our own survival as well.
Well said. And I think that's a great note to end on. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive,
We have.
but there's always more to learn.
Always.
The world of sharks is full of mysteries, and the more we understand these creatures, the better equipped we'll be to coexist peacefully. I encourage you, the listener, to continue exploring this topic. There's a wealth of information out there, from scientific research to personal stories to conservation efforts.
Yeah, there's so much to learn.
Remember, knowledge is key to dispelling myths and fostering a sense of respect and wonder
Yeah.
for these magnificent creatures.
Well said.
This has been a fascinating journey. I've learned a lot.
Me too.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.